Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling, right? Staring down a deadline, and maybe that little voice pops up. Just a few more hours.
Or your to-do list looks less like a plan and more like, I don't know, an impossible mountain climb.
Exactly. We've definitely all been there, especially, in a work context. So today on the deep dive, we're tackling something super relatable, needing to ask for more time on a project.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how asking for, well, what seems like a simple thing, more time, can actually reveal a lot about workplace communication, the dynamics involved.
Totally. It's not just about getting a yes or no, it's deeper. So our mission, really, in this deep dive is to equip you, our listener, with some practical language, some real insights into how you navigate asking for that extra time professionally.
And we're going to do that by looking closely at this specific conversation. It involves someone named Casey who needs more time, specifically for finishing photos for a press kit.
Right. So let's set the scene first. The dialogue kicks off with Casey's boss asking, hey, what's the status on those press kit photos?
And from that conversation, we learn what a press kit actually is in this context.
Yeah, it becomes clear it's something the marketing team puts together. Think of it like a ready-to-go package for journalists, for newspapers, magazines.
So it's got pictures, logos, company info, all the essentials.
Exactly. So if a publication wants to write about the company, boom, they have everything they need right there. Super efficient.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so Casey is behind schedule on these, well, pretty important photos.
That's the core issue, yeah. And that leads her to need an extension. She brings it up, saying something like, I might need to ask for an extension on that deadline.
And the boss's first reaction, not exactly thrilled, points out she's had over a month already.
Right, which immediately highlights, a key part of making these requests. You need a reason, a justification.
Definitely. Just asking isn't really enough, is it? You've got to explain why the original plan didn't work out. And Casey does that. She starts explaining the delays.
And she lists some, pretty specific hurdles she ran into. First, she apparently had trouble just booking the photographer.
Okay, that can happen. Scheduling conflicts and all that.
Then her colleague, Michael, was out sick, unexpectedly, for 3 whole weeks, so he couldn't be in the photos as planned.
Oof. Yeah, 3 weeks is a long time to be out unexpectedly. That would definitely throw a wrench in the works.
Big time. And then, as if that wasn't enough, the design team apparently lost the initial photo files.
Oh, no.
Yeah, which meant they had to redo the entire photo shoot. Talk about a rough patch.
Wow. That's quite a series of setbacks. It's interesting she prefaces it by saying, I'm not looking for excuses here.
Why do you think she says that?
Well, I think she's aware of how it might sound, listing multiple problems. She wants to signal that she's taking responsibility even though these things happen to her, rather than because of her. It's a smart move, conversationally.
Yeah, good point. It manages perception. Okay, so this whole situation brings up some really important vocabulary. First one, deadline.
Right. The source material defines it pretty simply, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just the absolute last day something has to be finished.
Like homework back in school, due Monday morning. That's a deadline.
Or at work, that project report due by Friday, close of business. Deadline. Simple concept, big implications.
And tied directly to that is extension.
Exactly. If you can't hit that deadline, you might need to ask for an extension, which basically means, asking for more time, pushing the deadline back.
Moving the goalposts, essentially. They're linked concepts, deadline and extension.
Two sides of the same coin.
Okay, another phrase Casey uses is that they ran into a lot of problems. The source highlights this, which I found interesting.
Yeah, it points out that ran into is the natural idiomatic way to say you encountered difficulties.
As opposed to
saying something like met some problems, which apparently sounds a bit off, maybe like a direct translation error for some learners.
Ah, okay. So ran into is the way to go. The examples that give help, like you can run into a storm while driving.
Or you might run into problems down the line if you don't plan carefully, or even run into trouble with the computer. It just means unexpectedly encountering something.
Got it. Makes sense. And the last key term here is delayed.
Pretty straightforward, this one. Just means late, basically. The opposite of on time.
Like a delayed flight. We've all been there. Or a delayed project start. And in the dialogue, the boss specifically asks Casey why things are delayed.
Which brings us neatly back to the boss's reaction. Because after hearing the reasons, there's definitely a sense of impatience there.
Yeah, they say, I'm not going to put this off any longer, Casey. I want those photos ASAP, ASA, as soon as possible.
Right. That really drives home the pressure, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The urgency often involved in work projects. Casey's request isn't just happening in a relaxed environment. There are consequences to the delay.
For sure. It definitely ups the stakes.
Yeah.
Now, the source also gives us some really practical phrases for when you, the listener, might need to ask for more time. The first one is great. I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Ooh, I like that one. What's good about it?
Well, it subtly suggests you've been aware of the potential issue for a little while. You intended to bring it up.
Ah, so it implies you weren't totally blindsided or just realizing it now. It shows some forethought, maybe.
Exactly. The examples are like, meaning to call someone back but haven't yet, or hearing that John quit and meaning to discuss it, or even just wanting to see a film but not getting around to it.
So there's this sense of, this has been on my mind, I plan to address it, and now here we are. It can soften the blow a bit.
Right. It frames it less like a sudden crisis. Okay, next phrase. Beyond my control.
This one's pretty clear-cut, isn't it?
Okay.
It means the cause of the delay is something you literally cannot influence.
Yep. The classic example is the weather. Can't control that.
Or like in Casey's case, Michael being sick for 3 weeks. That was definitely beyond her control and directly impacted the photos.
It clearly shifts the responsibility away from you for the cause of the delay.
And the last one from this section is put this off.
Which means?
Just to postpone, basically. To leave something for later.
Like putting off studying for an exam until the night before.
Or putting off that meeting you don't want to have. Or even just putting off checking your emails for a bit. It implies delaying something, sometimes intentionally. The boss uses it when they say, I'm not going to put this off any longer.
Gotcha. Okay, so thinking about Casey again, were her reasons valid? The dialogue itself kind of asks this.
In looking at it objectively,
Right.
yeah, mostly. I mean, difficulty booking a photographer, plausible. Colleague out sick for weeks, definitely beyond her control.
And the design team losing the files, that's a huge external problem. It really doesn't sound like it was her fault, not unless she was just slacking off.
Agreed, it wasn't procrastination. These were genuine obstacles that popped up and blocked her path.
But, and there's always a but, you have to think about the boss's side too.
Right, even if the reasons are totally valid, the project is still late. And that delay could impact other things, other people, maybe even clients.
Which is probably why the source brings up the idea of creative excuses, even humorously.
Ah, yes, the classics. The dog ate my homework.
They even mentioned the cat ate my homework update, and then, being abducted by aliens or mailing your homework to Africa by mistake.
Clearly absurd examples, but they highlight that thin line, don't they, between a genuine reason and something that just sounds like an excuse.
Yeah.
Especially if multiple things go wrong.
It makes you wonder how the boss is really hearing Casey's list of problems. Are they thinking, okay, valid points, or wow, that's a lot of excuses?
And that's a really good question for you, listening now. Think about times you've had to explain why something was late. What were your reasons?
Yeah, and how did you frame them? Were you worried they might sound like, well, like the dog ate your report? It's a situation most of us face at some point.
Absolutely, it's pretty universal.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's quickly recap that key language. We covered deadline, that final date.
Extension, asking for more time.
Ran into for encountering problems unexpectedly.
And delayed, meaning late or behind schedule. All crucial for talking about work and time.
Plus those really useful phrases for when you need that extension. I've been meaning to talk to you about that.
Suggesting you saw it coming.
Beyond my control.
For external factors.
And put this off, meaning to postpone.
But beyond just the words, I think the bigger takeaway here is about navigating these tricky conversations. It's finding that sweet spot.
What do you mean by sweet spot?
Well, it's that balance between owning your responsibilities, taking accountability for getting the work done, but also clearly communicating when things happen that genuinely throw you off course, things that are, well, beyond your control.
That makes sense. It's about communication and managing expectations realistically.
Exactly.
So that leads us to our final thought for you to mull over. How can you be more proactive in communicating potential delays, whether it's at work or even in your personal life?
Yeah. What strategies could you use to have those difficult deadline conversations effectively? How do you balance being accountable with explaining unforeseen circumstances without sounding like you're just making excuses?
Something to really think about, finding that balance in professional communication. It's key.